The moment you lose your temper, you lose the war. Every time you react, you're being controlled. The world wants you emotional, impulsive, and loud because a loud mind is a weak mind. But the person who stays cool while the room burns down is the person who owns the room. Mastery isn't about having the loudest voice. It's about having the quietest pulse. If you cannot control your own mind, you have no right to lead your own life. Stay cold. Stay focused. The calm mind wins every battle. Chapter 1. Reaction is a form of slavery. Look at your life. Look at how you move through the world. Most of you are not walking. You're being pushed. You think you are free because you choose what to wear or what to eat. You are wrong. You are a slave to the environment. You're a puppet on a string, and everyone you meet is holding the shears. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you flare up. When a coworker makes a passive-aggressive comment, your heart rate spikes. When the news shows you something terrifying, you lose your peace for the day. You're a walking set of triggers. You are predictable. You are manageable because you have no filter between what happens to you and how you feel about it. You have no freedom. If they can make you angry, they can make you lose. Every emotional reaction is a surrender. It is a white flag. When you react, you are handing over the remote control of your nervous system to a stranger. You are saying to the world, here are the keys to my house. Come in and trash the place whenever you feel like it. This is not strength. This is the ultimate form of submission. If they can make you angry, they can make you lose. You have a choice. You could be the animal that snarls every time it's poked, or you could be the master who decides which impulses deserve an audience. That's the key. Power is found in the gap between the stimulus and the response. If that gap is zero, you're a slave. If that gap is wide, you're a king. It's not about your short temper. It's about your discipline. It is the discipline to refuse to be moved. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need the world to be polite for you to maintain your dignity. If they can make you angry, they can make you lose. Think about the retail worker. We've all seen it. A customer walks in, screaming, irrational, and demanding. The customer is out of control. They are acting like a child. The amateur worker snaps back. They get defensive. They shout. They trade insults. What happens? They lose. They lose their dignity. They lose their professional standing. They might even lose their job. By reacting, they allowed a miserable stranger to dictate their behavior. They became a mirror of the customer's chaos. Now, look at the professional, the one with the coal mind. The customer screams, and the professional simply watches. They don't absorb the heat. They don't take it personally because they know it isn't about them. They stay unfazed. They speak in a low, level tone. Who has the power in that room? It isn't the person screaming. It is the person who refuses to be rattled. By staying calm, they maintain their authority. They maintain their job. They maintain their self-respect. They won because they refuse to play the game of reaction. If they can make you angry, they can make you lose. Every time you give in to an impulse of rage or frustration, you are training your brain to be weak. You are reinforcing the pathway of the slave. You are telling your subconscious that your environment is the boss of your identity. A coal mind operates differently. A coal mind views an insult as a data point, not a wound. When someone attacks you, they're giving you information about their own insecurity. Why would you be angry at a person for being broken? Why would you let their brokenness break you? If they can make you angry, they can make you lose. Here is your behavioral instruction, the 3-second rule. For the next 48 hours, you are forbidden from responding to any negative stimulus for at least 3 seconds. If someone insults you, count to 3. If your computer crashes, count to 3. If you get a frustrating text, count to 3. In those 3 seconds, you are reclaiming your sovereignty. You are widening the gap. You're taking the remote control back. You are asking yourself, is this reaction going to move me closer to my mission, or is it just a leak of my power? 9 times out of 10, the answer is that the reaction is a waste of your metabolic gold. If they can make you angry, they can make you lose. You have a choice. You can be right and angry, or you can be silent and successful. That's the key. Being right is the consolation prize for losers. Winners don't care about being right. They care about being effective. And you cannot be effective when your blood is boiling and your logic is blurred by the heat of emotion. It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's about your discipline to not let them drive the car. Feelings are passengers. They can sit in the back. They can make noise. But they never, under any circumstances, get their hands on the wheel. If they can make you angry, they can make you lose. The world will try to bait you. It wants you to join the circus. People want you to be as miserable and reactive as they are because it makes them feel normal. They will poke your soft spots. They will call you names. They will try to find the handle to pull your chain. Never give them a handle. Be formless. Be cold. When you refuse to react, you become a mystery to them. You become a threat. Because if they can't make you angry, they don't know how to control you. And if they can't control you, you are the most dangerous person in the room. If they can make you angry, they can make you lose. You don't need their permission to be unshakable. You don't need the world to be fair to be focused. The slave waits for a safe environment to be calm. The master creates calm regardless of the environment. Stop being an emotional reflex. Stop being a biological accident. Start being a deliberate, cold, calculating force of will. Your anger is a gift you give to your enemies. Stop being so generous. If they can make you angry, they can make you lose. Repeat this until it becomes your pulse. My reaction is my surrender. My silence is my sovereignty. My calm is my weapon. You are no longer a slave to the stimulus. You have realized that the only person who can truly ruin your day is the person staring back at you in the mirror. You have taken the remote control back. You are standing in the gap, and the gap is growing wider every second. If they can make you angry, they can make you lose. You have mastered the first level of the coal mine. You have stopped the external world from pulling your strings. You have traded the chains of reaction for the freedom of the gap. But do not think the battle is over. The external world is only the first layer. The real danger is much closer to home. You mastered the reaction. Now let's talk about the internal friction that is melting your logic from the inside out. Chapter 2, the high cost of mental heat. Most people think their greatest enemy is out there. They think it's the competition, the economy, or the person who insulted them. They are wrong. Your greatest enemy is sitting between your ears, and right now, it is running too hot. When you operate from a place of emotional heat, whether that heat is anger, desperation, or even overexcitement, you are malfunctioning. Heat is a distortion. It is a blur. When your mind is hot, you cannot see the data. You see your feelings about the data. You make decisions based on how you feel in a temporary moment rather than what the objective reality requires. This is how empires fall. This is how fortunes are lost. This is how lives are ruined in a single afternoon of unchecked emotion. Keep the engine cool to keep the mission alive. Think of your mind as a high-performance engine. It is capable of incredible speed, precision, and power. But like any elite machine, it has a thermal limit. If you redline that engine by staying in a state of high emotional intensity, it will seize. It will stop working. A seized engine cannot move you toward your goals. It just sits there, smoking and broken, while the world passes you by. You have a choice. You could be the amateur who burns out in a flash of temper, or you could be the professional who manages their internal temperature with surgical precision. That's the key. Performance isn't about how much you feel. It's about how much you can execute despite what you feel. Keep the engine cool to keep the mission alive. It's not about your passion, it's about your discipline. Passion is heat. It feels good for a second, but it's volatile. It's hard to control. Discipline is the cooling system. It is the steady flow of logic that keeps the internal temperature within the optimal range. You don't need their permission to be cold. You don't need their permission to be the most attached person in the room. Consider the high-stakes surgeon. Imagine they're performing a 10-hour procedure. The patient is on the table. A single millimeter of error means death. The pressure is suffocating. If that surgeon lets heat into their mind. If they get frustrated with an assistant, if they get scared of the outcome, if they get overwhelmed by the stakes, their hands will shake. Their focus will blur. Does the surgeon survive on passion? No, they survive on detachment. They treat the human body like a complex biological puzzle. They remove the story and focus on the system. They stay cold so their movements can stay precise. They know that to save a life, they must temporarily switch off their emotions. They understand that empathy is for the waiting room. Precision is for the operating theater. Keep the engine cool to keep the mission alive. Every time you vent your frustrations, you aren't releasing pressure, you are stoking the fire. You're training your mind to live in the red zone. You're teaching your brain that the way to handle a problem is to get loud and hot. This is a catastrophic error. A hot mind makes bad bets. It overplays its hand. It says things it can't take back. A cold mind observes the heat and refuses to let it into the combustion chamber. When you feel that surge of heat, that burning in your chest, or that racing in your thoughts, you must recognize it for what it is, a warning light on your dashboard. It is a signal to slow down, breathe, and re-engage the logic centers of your brain. Keep the engine cool to keep the mission alive. Here is your behavioral instruction, the thermal audit. For the next 7 days, I want you to rate your internal temperature on a scale of 1 to 10, 3 times a day. 1 is ice cold, total logic, total focus. 10 is a forest fire, rage, panic, total emotion. If you find yourself above a 5, you're no longer allowed to make decisions. You're not allowed to send emails. You're not allowed to have important talks. You're in the danger zone. Your mission is to get that number back down to a 3 or a 2. You do this by stepping away. You do this by drinking cold water. You do this by forcing yourself to list 3 objective facts about the situation that have nothing to do with your feelings. Keep the engine cool to keep the mission alive. You have a choice. You could be the hothead who is easy to bait, or the cold operator who is impossible to rattle. That's the key. When you are cold, you are invisible to the predators. They can't find your triggers because you've removed the heat. It's not about not caring. It's about your discipline to care about the right thing. You care about the mission. You care about the result. You do not care about the temporary chemical spike in your brain that is telling you to scream or quit. Keep the engine cool to keep the mission alive. The world is designed to make you run hot. Social media, the news, marketing, it's all built to trigger your heat response. They want you angry. They want you terrified. They want you impulsive. Why? Because a hot mind is a mind that buys. A hot mind is a mind that follows. A hot mind is a mind that is easily led to the slaughter. When you stay cold, you are performing an act of rebellion. You are reclaiming your cognitive sovereignty. You are refusing to let the environment dictate your internal state. You're guarding your thermal limit because you know that once you lose your cool, you lose your edge. Keep the engine cool to keep the mission alive. You don't need their permission to be stoic. You don't need their permission to be the person who doesn't react. People will call you emotionless. They will call you distant. Let them. Their labels are just more noise. While they're busy being emotional and making mistakes, you will be busy being cold and making progress. The most powerful person in any conflict is the one who needs the least from the environment. If you don't need the world to be nice, to be happy, you're dangerous. If you don't need the situation to be easy, to stay calm, you are unstoppable. Keep the engine cool to keep the mission alive. Repeat this until it is your mantra. My mind is a machine. My logic is the lubricant. My calm is the coolant. You have learned to manage the internal temperature. You have realized that heat is just a distraction from the data. You're training yourself to operate in the ice, where the movements are smooth and the vision is clear. Keep the engine cool to keep the mission alive. You master the heat. You have protected the engine. You are now moving with a level of clarity that most people will never experience. You're no longer burning yourself out from the inside. But a cold mind isn't just for thinking, it is for acting. And when you act from a place of coldness, your most potent tool isn't what you say, it's what you don't. You mastered your logic. Now let's talk about the power found in the void. Chapter 3. Silence is your greatest weapon. Close your mouth. Most of you are bleeding power every single time you speak. You feel a nervous twitch in your gut when a conversation stops, so you fill the air with noise. You explain your plans. You justify your mistakes. You brag about your hustle. You are so desperate to be heard that you have forgotten how to listen. You are so busy broadcasting your position that you have become blind to the enemy's movement. In the world of the cold mind, words are an expense. Silence is an asset. When you speak, you give away data. You reveal your insecurities, your intentions, and your desperation. But when you remain silent, you become a mirror. You create a vacuum, and human nature cannot stand a vacuum. It will rush to fill that empty space, and in that rush, it will stumble. It will reveal its tells. It will show you exactly where it is weak. Don't speak, observe. You have a choice. You could be the loudest person in the room, or you can be the most dangerous. That's the key. The loud person is predictable. They are manageable. They are so busy seeking validation through speech that they have no energy left for execution. But the silent person is a question mark. They're a black box. Because they don't leak information, they keep the world guessing. They maintain the strategic advantage of ambiguity. It's not about your introverted nature. It's about your discipline. It is the discipline to hold your tongue when your ego is begging for a good job. It is the discipline to let the other person finish their sentence and then wait 3 seconds more just to see what else they're hiding. You don't need their permission to be quiet. You don't need their permission to be the mystery they can't solve. Don't speak, observe. Think about the high-level negotiator, the master of the boardroom. Imagine they are sitting across from a seller who is asking for an outrageous price. The amateur negotiator starts arguing. They give a dozen reasons why the price is too high. They get hot. They provide context. By doing this, they show the seller exactly how much they want the deal and what their budget limits are. The professional does something different. They hear the price, and then they say nothing. They don't scowl. They don't argue. They just look at the seller with a calm, steady gaze. They let the silence stretch. 1 second, 3 seconds, 10 seconds. The social discomfort becomes unbearable for the seller. Their pulse spikes. They start to sweat. They start to wonder if they've offended the buyer. To break the tension, they start talking. They start justifying the price. Then they start discounting it. Well, we could move on the terms, they say. Maybe we can shave off 10%. The professional hasn't said a single word, and they've already won. They let the seller's own anxiety do the work for them. They used silence as a scalpel. They stayed cold while the other side got hot. Don't speak, observe. Every time you feel the urge to check in, to clarify, or to brag, you are experiencing an emotional leak. You're trying to use words to lower your own internal pressure. You are uncomfortable with the cold, so you try to create heat with your voice. Stop doing it. Learn to sit in the discomfort. Learn to find comfort in the silence while everyone else is drowning in their own noise. A cold mind uses silence as a radar. When you are quiet, you can hear the tremor in a liar's voice. You can see the micro-expression of fear on a competitor's face. You can hear the clicks and whirs of the world around you that the loud people are too distracted to notice. Don't speak, observe. Here is your behavioral instruction, the silence audit. For the next 24 hours, you're to cut your verbal output by 50%. If someone asks you a question, give the shortest possible factual answer. No stories, no fillers. If you are in a meeting, be the last person to speak if you speak at all. If you are insulted, say nothing. Just watch the person who insulted you. Notice how much energy you save. Notice how much more you see. You will realize that most of what people say is just emotional static. It has no value. It is just noise meant to mask their own fear. By refusing to join the chorus, you separate yourself from the herd. You become the observer. Don't speak, observe. You have a choice. You can be relatable and weak, or silent and powerful. That's the key. Relatability is a trap for the mediocre. The world wants you to talk so it can categorize you. It wants to put you in a box so it doesn't have to fear you. When you stay silent, you stay outside the box. You remain a threat. It's not about being a loner. It's about your discipline to protect your data. Information is the currency of the 21st century. Why are you giving it away for free to people who haven't earned it? Why are you telling your competition exactly what your next move is? Keep the pressure inside the system. Let the work do the talking. Don't speak, observe. When you speak less, your words gain weight. People start to listen when you do open your mouth because they know you don't waste breath. You become an authority not by shouting, but by being the person whose silence is more intimidating than anyone else's noise. You don't need their permission to be the quiet one. You don't need their permission to be the person who just listens. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them be terrified of what you might know. The more they wonder, the more power you have. Don't speak, observe. Repeat this until it is your law. Words are weakness. Silence is strength. Observation is mastery. You have learned to close the leak. You have learned that the void is your ally. You are training yourself to be a predator of information, waiting in the silence for the world to reveal itself. Don't speak, observe. You mastered the silence. You have stopped the external bleeding of your power. You are watching the world with a level of clarity you've never had before. You can see the tells. You can see the fear. But being silent is only half the battle. To truly dominate, your body must match your mind. Your internal rhythm must be as cold as your voice. You master the void. Now, let's talk about the biological clock that dictates your dominance. Chapter 4. The Predator's Pulse. Most people think that dominance is about the size of your muscles or the volume of your voice. They think it's about appearing aggressive. They are wrong. True dominance isn't found in your biceps. It is found in your autonomic nervous system. It is found in the rhythmic thumping inside your chest. While the amateur's heart is hammering against their ribs like a trapped bird, the master's heart is steady. It is slow. It is cold. When you enter a high-pressure situation, a negotiation, a confrontation, or a crisis, your body wants to betray you. It wants to dump adrenaline into your system. It wants to spike your heart rate. It wants to shorten your breath. This is the prey response. It is the biological signal of a person who is overwhelmed by their environment. If your pulse is racing, you are not in control. You're a passenger in a body that is panicking. Rule your pulse. Rule the room. You have a choice. You can be the person who gets swept away by the biological tide of stress, or you can be the person who dictates their own internal rhythm. That's the key. Dominance is a physiological state. If you can maintain a resting heart rate while the world around you is screaming, you have already won. You have signaled to everyone in the vicinity and to your own brain that you are the apex predator in this environment. It's not about your nerves, it's about your discipline. It is the discipline to monitor your biology in real time. You don't need their permission to be calm. You don't need the situation to be safe for your heart to be slow. You decide the tempo. You are the conductor of your own physiology. Rule your pulse, rule the room. Think about the elite special forces operators. Think about a Tier 1 team moving through a high-threat environment. They're in a firefight. The noise is deafening. The stakes are absolute life or death. The average human being in that situation would be blind with panic. Their heart rate would spike to 180 beats per minute. Their fine motor skills would evaporate, and their tunnel vision would make them useless. But the elite operator has trained for the predator's pulse. They utilize tactical breathing, box breathing, to manually override their nervous system. They inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. They are literally hacking their own biology. By forcing their breath to be steady, They force their heart rate to drop. Because their heart rate is low, their mind remains clear. They can see the data. They can make the shot. They stay cold in the heat of battle because they have mastered the internal rhythm. They know that if they lose control of their pulse, they lose control of the mission. Rule your pulse, rule the room. Every time you let a minor inconvenience, a snarky email, a red light, a late flight, spike your heart rate, you're practicing being a victim. You are training your body to be reactive. You're telling your nervous system that the environment is more powerful than you are. This is a leak of your metabolic gold. It is a waste of your life force. A cold mind understands that the pulse is the foundation of authority. When you speak from a place of low heart rate, your voice has more weight. Your movements have more intent. People can feel the gravity of a person who is biologically unshakable. They might not know why they feel it, but they recognize it. They recognize that you are the one who is not afraid. Rule your pulse, rule the room. Here is your behavioral instruction, the pulse check. For the next 3 days, I want you to wear a heart rate monitor or simply check your pulse manually 5 times a day. Specifically, check it when you feel heat. Check it when you're stuck in traffic. Check it when you're about to walk into a meeting. Check it when you're reading a frustrating comment online. If your heart is racing, you're not allowed to speak. You're not allowed to act. You must stop everything and engage in tactical breathing until your pulse returns to a baseline of calm. You're training your body to associate chaos with calmness. You're teaching your nervous system that the predator's pulse is your default setting. You're widening the gap between the stimulus and the heartbeat. Rule your pulse, rule the room. You have a choice. You could be the prey that is easily rattled or the predator who is impossible to move. That's the key. In any social interaction, the person with the lower heart rate is the one with the most power. They're the one who can wait. They're the one who can observe. They're the one who isn't desperate for a resolution because they are comfortable in the tension. It's not about being a robot. It's about your discipline to stay functional. When you are hot and your heart is pounding, your IQ drops. You become stupid. You become impulsive. You become easy to manipulate. But when you're cold and your pulse is slow, you are a genius. You see the moves before they happen. You see the tells in others because you aren't distracted by the noise in your own chest. Rule your pulse, rule the room. The world will try to speed you up. It wants you in a state of high arousal. It wants you hyped up or stressed out. It wants your pulse at 100 beats per minute just sitting at your desk. Reject the tempo of the world. Set your own pace. Move slower. Breathe deeper. Speak with the cadence of a person who has all the time in the universe. You don't need their permission to take a breath. You don't need their permission to slow down the conversation until your biology catches up with your intent. Let them be the ones who are rushing. Let them be the ones who are panting. You remain the still point in the center of the storm. Rule your pulse, rule the room. Repeat this until it is your biological law. My breath is my anchor. My pulse is my power. My calm is my command. You have mastered the internal rhythm. You have learned that your heart is a tool, not a master. You are training yourself to be the coldest person in every room, not because of what you say, but because of the steady, silent beat inside your chest. Rule your pulse, rule the room. You master the pulse. You have leveled your physiology. You are moving with a weight and a presence that others can sense but cannot explain. You have stopped the internal panic. But staying calm is not just about survival. It is about results. And to get the results, you must stop the most common emotional leak of all, the need to show off. You mastered your biology. Now let's talk about the trap of the ego and the power of the finished product. Chapter 5. Stop proving and start dominating. The loudest person in the room is the weakest person in the room. Always. When you feel that burning itch to tell everyone how hard you're working, you are leaking power. When you feel the need to set the record straight or show them what you're made of, you are confessing that their opinion of you matters more than your own reality. You are begging for a good job. You are begging for a seat at the table. The cold mind doesn't beg. The cold mind doesn't even ask. The cold mind occupies the space it has earned and lets the gravity of its results do the talking. If you have to tell me you're a lion, you're probably a sheep in a costume. True predators don't announce their arrival. They just arrive. Execution is the only argument that matters. You have a choice. You could be the person who wins the argument, or you could be the person who wins the game. That's the key. Most people spend their mental energy on status management. They want to be seen as successful. They want to be regarded as smart. They want to be perceived as disciplined. This is an emotional drain. It is a distraction from the work itself. When you focus on proving, your energy is directed outward toward the audience. When you focus on dominating, your energy is directed downward into the foundation of your craft. Dominance is silent. Proving is noisy. It's not about your ego. It's about your discipline to be invisible until you are undeniable. You don't need their permission to be the best. You don't need their permission to ignore their skepticism. Execution is the only argument that matters. Think about the quiet professional in the boardroom. Look at the two types of people. You have a talker. He has the flashy slides. He uses the buzzwords. He spends 40 minutes explaining why his vision is the future. He is desperate for the CEO to nod. He is desperate for the room to validate his worth. He is proving. Then you have the operator. She sits at the end of the table. She says almost nothing. When it's her turn to speak, she doesn't give a speech. She opens a folder. She shows the quarterly results. The numbers are up 40%. The margins are optimized. The competitors are retreating. She doesn't ask for a good job. She doesn't need to set the record straight about her talent. The data has already ended the conversation. The room goes silent because there is no counter-argument to a finished result. She isn't proving, she is dominating. She has used her silence to build a wall of evidence that no one can climb over. Execution is the only argument that matters. Every time you engage in bravado, you are signaling to the world that you aren't sure of yourself. Bravado is a mask for insecurity. It is a heat response. When you are cold, you are comfortable with being underestimated. In fact, you prefer it. When the world underestimates you, it leaves you alone. It stops watching you. It gives you the gap you need to build your empire in peace. If you are busy proving people wrong, you are still letting them dictate your motivation. You are still a slave to their expectations. A cold mind doesn't care about proving them wrong. A cold mind cares about being right in its own internal ledger. Execution is the only argument that matters. Here is your behavioral instruction, the braggart's fast. For the next 10 days, you are to hide every win. If you hit a personal record in the gym, tell no one. If you close a difficult deal, keep it to yourself. If you complete a major project ahead of schedule, just move on to the next task. You are training yourself to find satisfaction in the doing, not the praise. You're sealing the leaks in your power. When you stop looking for the hit of validation, you realize that the work itself is the reward. You are becoming a person who doesn't need a witness to be a winner. You are becoming the quiet professional. Execution is the only argument that matters. You have a choice. You can have the warm feeling of a compliment or the cold reality of a victory. That's the key. Compliments are like sugar. They give you a quick spike and a long crash. They make you soft. They make you complacent. But a result? A result is a permanent change in the landscape. It's not about being humble. It's about your discipline to stay focused on the target. Humility is often just another form of social signaling. We aren't looking for humility. We are looking for indifference. You should be indifferent to their praise and indifferent to their criticism. The only thing you should care about is whether the needle moved. Execution is the only argument that matters. The world is full of people who are world-class at talking about what they're going to do. They have the coming soon mindset. They live in the future tense because they are too afraid of the present work. They want the status of the master without the calluses of the apprentice. Reject the future tense. Live in the past tense of done. I'm going to build is noise. I bill, is power. You don't need their permission to be a person of action. You don't need their permission to stop announcing your progress. Let them find out about your success when they have to write you a check or step aside to let you pass. Execution is the only argument that matters. Repeat this until it is your philosophy. My work is my word. My results are my reputation. My silence is my superiority. When you stop trying to prove your value, you start increasing your value. You save the energy you used to spend on PR and you reinvest it into R&D. You become more efficient. You become more dangerous. You become the person that others are trying to prove themselves to. Execution is the only argument that matters. You have learned to kill the ego. You have learned that the only valid testimony is the finished product. You are no longer a prover. You are a producer. You are moving with a weight and a gravity that makes talkers look like children. But as you climb higher and the results start to stack up, you will face a new temptation. You will start to worry about losing what you've built. You will start to get attached to the status you've earned. You master the ego. Now, let's talk about the danger of the prize and why you must learn to walk away from everything you love to keep your edge. Chapter 6, Detach or Die. You are failing because you care too much. You are suffocating your potential with the grip of your own expectations. You wake up, you check the stats, you look at the bank account, you step on the scale, and you let a temporary number dictate your worth. If the number is up, you're a king. If the number is down, you're a failure. This emotional volatility is a death sentence for your mission. When you're attached to a specific outcome, you create anxiety. Anxiety is heat. Heat blurs the vision. It makes your hands shake. It makes you hesitant when you should be aggressive. The moment you need to win, you have already signaled to your brain that you are currently lacking. You are operating from a place of scarcity. To win the war, you must be willing to lose the battle without flinching. Own the effort. Ignore the score. You have a choice. You could be the person who is emotionally destroyed by a bad day, or you could be the person who is psychologically bulletproof. That's the key. Mastery is the ability to separate your identity from your results. Your results are just data. They are feedback. They are not you. If you want to perform at an elite level, you must become indifferent to the immediate reward. You must become a ghost in your own life, present in the work, but absent from the craving for applause. It's not about your passion. It's about your discipline to stay detached. Passion wants the prize. Discipline loves the process. You don't need their permission to be successful, and you certainly don't need a win today to justify your existence. Own the effort. Ignore the score. Think about the professional poker player, a true high-stakes shark. They're sitting at a table where a single hand can cost more than your house. Do they get hot when they lose a hand? No. Do they celebrate when they win a pot? No. They understand the expected value. They focus entirely on the correct move. They look at the math. They look at the odds. They put their chips in the middle based on the data. If the cards fall the wrong way and they lose, they remain cold. They know they made the right move. They know that if they play that same hand 1,000 times, they will come out on top. They are detached from the individual outcome because they are attached to the system. They own the effort. They ignore the score of the moment. They know that luck is just a variable that averages out to 0 over time for the person who remains disciplined. Every time you get high on a victory or low on a defeat, you are admitting that you aren't in control of the machine. You are letting the outcome drive the car. This is an amateur mistake. A professional is a machine. A machine doesn't care if it's raining. A machine doesn't care if it's winning. A machine just runs. When you detach, you gain a superpower, indifference. When you are indifferent to the outcome, you are impossible to rattle. You can take risks that others won't. You can endure seasons of silence that would break a normal man. You're no longer performing for a result. You are performing for the standard. Own the effort. Ignore the score. Here is your behavioral instruction, the input audit. For the next 10 days, I want you to stop checking your scoreboard. If you're building a business, stop checking the daily sales. If you're on a fitness journey, stop checking the scale. If you're a creator, stop checking the views. Instead, I want you to create an effort checklist. Did you hit your numbers? Did you put in the hours? Did you follow the protocol? If the answer is yes, you have one a day. Period. You are training your brain to find dopamine in the discipline, not the data. You are forcing yourself to love the cold of the work rather than the heat of the result. By the time you look back at the score in 10 days, the progress will be undeniable, precisely because you stopped looking at it and started living it. Own the effort. Ignore the score. You have a choice. You could be a slave to the short term or a master of the long game. That's the key. The short term is where the emotions live. The long game is where the empires are built. If you can't survive a week of red numbers without losing your mind, you have no business seeking greatness. It's not about not caring. It's about your discipline to care about the right things. You care about the quality of the strike. You care about the integrity of the routine. You do not care about the noise of the world reaction. Own the effort. Ignore the score. The world wants you attached. It wants you checking your notifications every 30 seconds. It wants you desperate for the buy-in. Why? Because a desperate person is easy to manipulate. A person who needs a result right now is a person who will cut corners. They will compromise their values. They will sell their soul for a warm feeling of security. Reject the security. Embrace the cold of detachment. When you don't need anything to happen, everything starts to happen. Success is like a cat. If you chase it, it runs away. If you sit still and do your work, it eventually crawls into your lap. Own the effort. Ignore the score. You don't need their permission to be unfazed by failure. You don't need their permission to be unimpressed by your own success. Stay level. Stay flat. The predator's pulse we talked about earlier is only possible if you are detached from the stakes. If the stakes are everything to you, your heart will always race. If the mission is everything and the result is nothing, you become the most dangerous person at the table. Own the effort. Ignore the score. Repeat this until it is your philosophy. The work is the reward. The result is the residue. The effort is the only thing I own. You have learned to let go of the prize to win the race. You have learned that winning is a byproduct of being the person who can endure the most losing without losing their mind. You are becoming unmovable. You are becoming a closed loop. Own the effort. Ignore the score. You mastered attachment. You have freed yourself from the scoreboard. You are moving with a level of freedom that makes you a ghost in the machine. You're no longer trying to win. You're simply executing the moves that lead to winning. But as you widen the gap between your effort and your ego, you will find that the world tries to fill that gap with noise. You mastered the what. Now, let's talk about the when and the power of the split-second decision. Chapter 7. The discipline of the second thought. You are a slave to your first instinct. Most of you live your entire lives in a state of immediate, unthinking reaction. You feel a spark of anger, and you shout. You feel a wave of hunger, and you eat. You feel the sting of a digital insult, and you type a response before you've even finished reading the sentence. You think you are being authentic. You think you are following your gut. You are wrong. You are being predictable. You are being controlled by the most primitive, reptilian part of your brain. Your first thought is almost never yours. It is a chemical reaction. It is the result of millions of years of evolution designed to keep a caveman alive, not to help a modern man dominate. If you want to be a master, you must learn to kill your first thought so your second thought can lead. Widening the gap is winning the game. You have a choice. You can be the person who reacts in the heat of the second, or you can be the person who responds with the coldness of a strategist. That's the key. Power does not live in the impulse. Power lives in the space between the stimulus and the response. The wider that space, the more power you have. The narrower that space, the more you are just an animal waiting for someone to pull your chain. It's not about your impulsivity, it's about your discipline. It is the discipline to catch yourself in the act of being human. You don't need their permission to take a breath. You don't need their permission to let an insult hang in the air for 24 hours while you decide if it's even worth your energy. Widening the gap is winning the game. Think about the high-level executive, the one who has built a multi-million-dollar empire. Imagine they receive an email on a Friday evening. It's a threat. A competitor is suing, or a key partner is backing out, or a disgruntled employee is lashing out. The first thought of that executive is pure heat. It's rage. It's the urge to call the person and scream. It's the urge to fire off a scathing, bridge-burning reply that feels good for exactly 30 seconds. But the elite executive does nothing. They read the email, they feel the heat, and then they close the laptop. They wait. They go for a walk. They sleep on it. They give themselves 24 hours of cold gap. Why? Because they know that a response sent in the heat of the moment is a tantrum. A response sent after 24 hours is a chess move. By the time they reply on Monday morning, the emotion is gone. Only the strategy remains. They win because they refuse to let their first thought sit in the captain's chair. Widening the gap is winning the game. Your first thought is a liar. It tells you that the problem is bigger than it is. It tells you that you must act now or lose everything. It tells you that your ego is under attack and you must defend it at all costs. A cold mind recognizes these as biological sirens. When the alarm goes off, the cold mind doesn't run to the fire. It looks at the map. It asks, is this helpful? Is this logical? Does this move the needle toward the mission? If the answer is no, the cold mind discards the first thought and waits for the second. The second thought is where the genius lives. The second thought is where the predator calculates. Widening the gap is winning the game. Here is your behavioral instruction, the mandatory delay. For the next week, you are to introduce a gap into every digital interaction. If you receive a text that triggers you, you are forbidden from replying for 10 minutes. If you receive a stressful email, you must wait 2 hours. If you feel the urge to post something emotional on social media, you must wait until the next morning. In that delay, you are not suppressing your feelings. You are observing them. You are watching the heat dissipate. You are waiting for the second thought to arrive. You will find that after the delay, the urge to react is almost always gone. You will look back at your first thought and realize how close you came to making a stupid, amateur mistake. You're training the muscle of the gap. Widening the gap is winning the game. You have a choice. You could be the hothead who is easy to manipulate, or the cold operator who is impossible to read. That's the key. When you react instantly, you give people a map of your triggers. You show them exactly where to poke to get a rise out of you. It's not about being slow. It's about your discipline to be precise. Precision takes time. Speed is useless if you're running in the wrong direction. By widening the gap, you ensure that every move you make is a deliberate act of will, not a biological reflex. Widening the gap is winning the game. The world is designed to shrink your gap. The notifications, the headlines, the instant nature of everything is a coordinated attack on your second thought. They want you in a state of constant, low-level panic. They want you reactive. Why? Because reactive people are easy to sell to. Reactive people are easy to govern. Reactive people are easy to replace. When you master the second thought, you become a ghost in their machine. They pull the string, but nothing happens. They throw the bait, but you don't bite. You are operating on a different timeline. You are moving at the speed of logic, while they're drowning in the speed of emotion. Widening the gap is winning the game. You don't need their permission to be unresponsive. You don't need their permission to be quiet while you think. If someone demands an immediate answer, that is a data point that they're trying to manipulate you. The more they rush you, the more you should slow down. The more they want heat, the more you should provide ice. Widening the gap is winning the game. Repeat this until it is your law. My first thought belongs to my biology. My second thought belongs to my mission. The gap is my fortress. You have learned to pause. You have learned to wait for the fog of emotion to clear before you take the shot. You're no longer a victim of the moment. You are a master of the interval. You have realized that the most powerful thing you can do is nothing until the logic is absolute. Widening the gap is winning the game. You master the gap. You have reclaimed your sovereignty over the split second. You are moving with the terrifying calm of a person who cannot be baited. You have realized that your power is not in your speed, but in your stillness. But do not think that just because you are calm, you will be accepted. In fact, your stillness will be seen as a challenge. You mastered the internal interval. Now, let's talk about what happens when the world tries to break your peace through social friction. Chapter 8. Social chaos is a test of character. The world is not a polite place. It is a testing ground. Every day, the people around you, your coworkers, your competitors, even your friends and family, are running a silent diagnostic on your character. They are poking at your boundaries. They are testing your thermal limit. They want to see how much pressure it takes to make you crack. They want to know if you're a leader or a follower, and they determine the answer by how easily they can rattle your cage. Social chaos is not an accident. It is a filter. It is designed to separate the fragile from the formidable. When the room descends into an argument, when the project falls apart, or when someone throws a direct insult at your feet, that is not a disaster. It is an examination. If you flare up, you fail. If you get defensive, you fail. If you join the screaming match, you prove that you are just as small as the chaos itself. Let the world scream. You stay silent. You have a choice. You could be the person who is easily rattled, or you could be the person who is unmovable. That's the key. Most people are terrified of social friction. They will do anything to avoid it, or they will lose their minds trying to win it. But the cold mind understands that social pressure is actually a source of energy. If you remain still while everyone else is vibrating with panic, the room's authority naturally flows to you. You don't have to demand respect. You earn it through your refusal to be moved by the noise. It's not about your personality type. It's about your discipline. It is the discipline to remain a black box while others are spilling their emotions everywhere. You don't need their permission to be the adult in the room. You don't need their permission to ignore their bait. Let the world scream. You stay silent. Think about the trust fund effect. We see this in individuals who have lived lives of total insulation. They have never faced friction. They have never had to stand their ground in a storm. Because of this, they are biologically and psychologically fragile. A minor inconvenience, a late flight, a cold meal, a perceived slight, triggers a total system meltdown. They scream. They demand. They fall apart. They have zero authority because they have zero control over their internal state. Now, compare that to the person forged in friction. The person who has survived the streets, the boardroom wars, or the physical grind. They have seen real chaos. They have been tested by fire. When a social crisis erupts, they don't even blink. They sit back. They observe. While the trust fund mentality is panicking over a spilled drink, the disciplined mind is calculating the next 3 moves. The world sees this contrast. It sees who is brittle and who is solid. It naturally follows the person who remains unshakable. Let the world scream. You stay silent. Every time someone tries to get a rise out of you, they are handing you a test. If you get angry, you've told them exactly where your control panel is. You've given them the blueprints to your mind. But when you remain calm, when you meet their aggression with a cold, steady gaze, you flip the script. Now, they're the ones being tested. Your silence forces them to confront their own lack of control. Your stillness makes them feel small. A cold mind knows that social dominance isn't about being the loudest, it's about being the most composed. The louder they get, the quieter you should become. The more they rush, the more you should slow down. You're the still point in the center of their cyclone. Let the world scream. You stay silent. Here is your behavioral instruction, the Calm Core exercise. For the next week, I want you to actively seek out a high-friction social environment. A crowded store, a heated debate, a family gathering where that one person always tries to start something. Your mission is not to win the argument. Your mission is to be the person who reacts the least. When someone says something offensive, say nothing. Just look at them. When a situation becomes chaotic, lower your voice. Speak slower. Watch the heat in the room try to attach itself to you. Refuse to let it in. You will feel the social pressure pushing against your chest. It will feel like an invisible weight. Do not push back. Just be the mountain. By the end of the week, you will realize that you have more power than you ever imagined, simply because you stopped giving it away to every loud mouth that crossed your path. Let the world scream. You stay silent. You have a choice. You can be relatable and reactive, or unreachable and respected. That's the key. Most people want to be liked. They want to fit in. They want to be part of the noise. But the 1% understands that respect is born from distance. If you're always part of the emotional fray, you are a commodity. If you're the person who remains calm when the sky is falling, you are a leader. It's not about being cold. It's about your discipline to stay effective. Social chaos is a distraction from your mission. If you let someone else's tantrum derail your focus, you have allowed them to win. You have allowed their chaos to become your reality. Reject their reality. Stay in yours. Let the world scream. You stay silent. You don't need their permission to be the most composed person in the room. You don't need their permission to walk away from a fight that serves no purpose. When you pass the test of social chaos, you gain immediate, unstated authority. People will start looking to you for the answer. They will start deferring to your judgment. Not because you're a genius, but because you're the only one who isn't hallucinating with emotion. You're the only one who can actually see the data. Let the world scream. You stay silent. Repeat this until it is your social law. Their noise is not my problem. Their panic is not my pace. Their chaos is my opportunity to lead. You have mastered the external pressure. You have learned that the world's attempts to rattle you are actually gifts, opportunities to demonstrate your dominance. You're no longer a victim of the social environment. You're the architect of it. Let the world scream. You stay silent. You mastered the chaos. You have proven that your character is unshakable. You are moving with a level of gravitational authority that draws people toward your calm. But as you navigate the storms of the world, you must realize that this level of mastery doesn't happen by accident. It isn't a vibe you find. It is a structure you build. You mastered the social test. Now let's talk about the daily blueprint that makes this calm mind permanent. Chapter 9, the architecture of a cold routine. Stop waiting for the right vibe to be productive. Stop waiting for the world to be quiet so you can finally find your peace. Calmness is not something that happens to you. It is something you build. It is a structural achievement. If your life is a chaotic mess of last-minute decisions, reactive emails, and seeing how you feel when you wake up, then your mind will always be hot. You are burning your most precious resource, mental energy, on things that should be automated. You are exhausting yourself before the real battle even begins. A calm mind is built on the foundation of a predictable, disciplined routine. When you automate the trivial, you liberate the critical. Every small decision you make, what to wear, what to eat, when to start work, is a withdrawal from your decision capital. If you spend that capital on nonsense in the morning, you'll be bankrupt by the time you face a real crisis in the afternoon. Routine creates the calm. You have a choice. You could be the person who navigates life like a pinball, bouncing off every obstacle and distraction, or you could be the person who moves on a fixed track. That's the key. A track doesn't require motivation. A track doesn't care about your mood. It just leads to the destination. When your day is architected, your brain can stop scanning for what's next and start focusing on what's now. It's not about your creative soul needing freedom. It's about your discipline to protect your cognitive bandwidth. You don't need their permission to be boring. You don't need their permission to have a schedule that looks like a military operation. The more boring your routine, the more explosive your results. Routine creates the calm. Think about the world's most successful entrepreneurs, the ones who run multiple companies and manage thousands of people. Look at their uniform. Why did Steve Jobs wear the black turtleneck every single day? Why does Mark Zuckerberg wear the same gray t-shirt? It's not a lack of style. It's a high-level strategic move. They realized that the energy required to choose an outfit is the same energy required to greenlight a product launch. They decided to stop leaking power into their closets. By wearing a uniform, they eliminated one more heat source from their morning. They automated the trivial so their minds could remain cold and ready for the billion-dollar decisions. They chose the discipline of a routine over the variety of a lifestyle. They knew that a predictable morning is the only way to survive an unpredictable day. Routine creates the calm. Every time you wing it, you are inviting chaos into your mind. Chaos creates friction. Friction creates heat. Heat blurs the vision. If you have to decide to go to the gym, you have already lost. If you have to decide to do the deep work, you are fighting a war with your own procrastination. A cold mind uses routine as a shield. When a habit is set, the brain goes into low power mode for the mundane tasks. This is the biological secret of high performance. You save your high power mode for the negotiations, the creative breakthroughs, and the social tests we discussed earlier. You aren't robotic, you are efficient. You are a cold-blooded executioner of your own agenda. Routine creates the calm. Here is your behavioral instruction, the decision audit. For the next 48 hours, I want you to write down every single decision you make. What time did you get out of bed? What was the first thing you put in your mouth? Which email did you open first? What are you wearing? Now look at that list. Identify 5 decisions that you can eliminate through automation. Meal prep your food. Lay out your clothes the night before. Set a fixed start time for work that is non-negotiable. Turn your phone on Do Not Disturb until your first block of work is done. You are building the architecture of your fortress. You are removing the friction points that make you run hot. Within 48 hours of implementing these changes, you will feel a weight lift off your shoulders. That weight was the invisible tax of decision fatigue. By paying that tax up front through routine, you buy your freedom for the rest of the day. Routine creates the calm. You have a choice. You can have a spontaneous life that leads nowhere, or a disciplined routine that leads everywhere. That's the key. People will tell you that you're missing out. They will tell you that you're too rigid. Let them. Their spontaneity is just a cover for their lack of direction. Their freedom is actually a prison of impulse. While they're wandering around trying to find themselves, you are exactly where you plan to be, doing exactly what you plan to do. Your rigidity is the only thing that makes you unshakable. Routine creates the calm. It's not about perfection. It's about discipline. Your routine will get interrupted. The world will try to throw a wrench in your gears. But when you have an architecture, you have a baseline to return to. A person without a routine is lost the moment a crisis hits. A person with a cold routine simply resets and re-engages. You don't need their permission to be a creature of habit. You don't need their permission to value your structure over their last-minute plans. If they want access to you, they have to fit into the architecture you've built. You do not bend the fortress to accommodate the tourists. Routine creates the calm. The architecture of your day is the architecture of your soul. If your morning is reactive, checking social media, responding to texts, rushing to beat the clock, then your soul is reactive. You're starting the day in pray mode. You're letting the world set the tempo. Reverse the flow. On the first hour, establish the routine. Silence the noise before it even begins. When you step out into the world with a mind that has already won its first 10 battles through discipline, you move with a different kind of power. You aren't looking for a vibe, you brought the vibe with you. Routine creates the calm. Repeat this until it is your daily law. My schedule is my sovereignty. My habits are my armor. My routine is my peace. You have mastered the blueprint. You have learned that the secret to a calm mind isn't a meditation retreat. It's a disciplined Tuesday morning. You are automating your way to authority. You are becoming a closed system of execution. Routine creates the calm. You master the routine. You have built a fortress that protects your mental energy. You are moving with a level of consistency that makes your success inevitable. You have stabilized the machine. But as you settle into this new state of being, you will realize that all these chapters, the reactions, the heat, the silence, the pulse, the routine, are leading to one final, unshakable truth. You master the day. Now, let's talk about the man who has become the mountain. Chapter 10, the unmovable identity. You have reached the final layer. Up until now, we have talked about tactics. We have talked about breathing, silence, routine, and detachment. Those were the tools of the apprentice. But now, the tools must become the craftsman. There's a level of existence where you no longer try to stay calm. You no longer remind yourself to be cold. You have reached a state where your identity is so densely packed with discipline that the world no longer has the leverage to move you. You are the unmovable identity. Most people have a liquid identity. They take the shape of whatever container they are poured into. If the environment is angry, they become angry. If the economy is failing, they become fearful. They are a reflection of their circumstances. But you have become a solid. You have crystallized. I am the mountain. The noise does not matter. You have a choice. You can be the person who is forever trying to find themselves, or you can be the person who has decided who they are and refuses to negotiate. That's the key. An identity is not something you discover in a moment of inspiration. It is something you forge through 1,000 moments of refusal. Every time you refused to react, every time you stayed silent, every time you followed the routine when you didn't feel like it, you were adding a layer of stone to the mountain. It's not about your feelings. It's about your discipline to be a constant in a world of variables. You don't need their permission to be unshakable. You don't need their permission to be the one who does not flinch. I am the mountain. The noise does not matter. Think about the elder statesman, the industry titan, the person who has spent 50 years in the arena. They're sitting on a stage. They are being attacked by a panel of critics. They are being accused of being out of touch, or being cold, or being wrong. The noise is deafening. The crowd is thirsty for a reaction. They want to see the titan get angry. They want to see the crack in the armor. But the titan just sits there. They don't lean forward. They don't interrupt. They might even have a slight, almost imperceptible smile on their face. Why? Because they aren't listening to the noise. They're looking at their legacy. They know that the skyscrapers they built, the lives they changed, and the systems they created are the only reality that exists. The words of the critics are just wind, and wind cannot move a mountain. They have reached the level where their presence is an answer in itself. I am the mountain. The noise does not matter. When you become unmovable, you stop being a participant in other people's drama. You become a spectator. You watch the heat of the world from a place of permanent cold. This is the ultimate power. When you are unmovable, you're the one who dictates the reality of the room. If someone enters your space with chaos and you meet it with absolute, unyielding stillness, their chaos has nowhere to land. It eventually burns itself out against the side of your mountain. A cold mind knows that identity is the ultimate shield. If you know exactly who you are, no one can tell you who you should be. If you know your worth is tied to your discipline and your execution, no one can steal your value with a comment or a setback. You have become a closed system. You are self-contained. You are the mountain. I am the mountain. The noise does not matter. Here is your behavioral instruction, the identity anchor. I want you to define your non-negotiables, the 3 things that you will be regardless of what happens today. Maybe it is, I am calm. I am precise. I'm disciplined. Write these down. Memorize them. Today, the world will try to pull you away from these anchors. A client will leave. A friend will betray you. You will make a mistake. When it happens, you are to say to yourself, that is the wind. I am the mountain. You do not change your posture. You do not change your tone. You do not skip your routine. You prove to your nervous system that your identity is more real than the event. I am the mountain. The noise does not matter. You have a choice. You can be a work in progress or a finished product. That's the key. A work in progress is still looking for feedback. A work in progress is still susceptible to the heat. But a finished product is ready for the market. It is ready for the storm. It's not about perfection. It's about your discipline to be consistent. The mountain isn't perfect. It has jagged edges. It has scars. It has cold peaks. But it is always there. It is reliable. It is the landmark that everyone else uses to find their way. When you become unmovable, people start to orbit you. They look to you for stability. They trust you because you're the only thing that doesn't change when the weather does. I am the mountain. The noise does not matter. The world hates the unmovable. It wants you to be malleable. It wants you to be open to change, which is usually just code for easy to influence. It wants you to be vulnerable. Reject the invitation to be weak. Vulnerability is for the safe. The unmovable identity is for the warrior. You don't need their permission to be stony. You don't need their permission to be the person who doesn't share their feelings during the battle. Your feelings are irrelevant to the height of the peak. Your internal state is your own. Your external presence is a fortress. I am the mountain. The noise does not matter. Repeat this until it is the only thing left of your old self. My character is my fate. My stillness is my strength. My identity is my fortress. You have completed the transformation. You have learned to rule your reaction, cool your engine, weaponize your silence, and architect your day. You have detached from the prize and widened the gap of the second thought. You have passed the social tests and built the routine. And now you have reached the summit. You're no longer doing the work. You are the work. I am the mountain. The noise does not matter. The noise will continue. The storms will still come. The critics will still shout, but they are shouting at a ghost. The person they're trying to rattle no longer exists. You have been replaced by something harder, colder, and more permanent. You are the mountain, and the mountain does not care about the wind. I am the mountain. The noise does not matter. You have mastered the art of the calm mind. You have won the war within. You are moving through the world with a terrifying level of clarity and power. You are unshakable. You are undeniable. Now, it is time to deliver the final word. For the closing, the 1-minute closing script. Listen to the silence. That is the sound of your power. You have spent the last hour learning what 99% of the world will never understand. That your mind is the only battlefield that matters. You have the tools. You have the blueprint. You have the predator's pulse. There is no more room for trying. There is no more room for maybe. From this moment forward, you are the coldest, calmest, most disciplined person in every room you enter. Every setback is just data. Every insult is just wind. Every crisis is just a test of your routine. You are no longer a victim of the heat. You are the master of the cold. The world is waiting to see if you will crack. It is waiting for you to return to your old, reactive, loudmouthed self. Prove it wrong. Prove it wrong through your silence. Prove it wrong through your execution. Prove it wrong through your absolute refusal to be moved. Put this phone down. Stand up. Walk into the world and be the mountain. Do not explain. Do not justify. Just dominate. The war is over. You have won. Now go do the work.